Well, good morning or good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sandy Miller, Executive Director here at CASA, and I'm here to welcome you this morning to our afternoon to our final session of our 2025 annual conference. We have 60 attendees at different sessions this week, and we're thankful to all of you for making the time to attend. Thank you to our conference sponsor, John Deere Canada. It is thanks to them that we're able to offer free registrations for this week. It's a reminder that your microphones and cameras are disabled because we're in webinar format. So if you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. CASA staff will monitor these questions and share them during the Q&A period. As we've mentioned throughout the week, closed captioning is available for the conference in 20 languages. This is located by clicking the closed caption button in the control bar at the bottom of the screen. Click it to turn on captions and select the language if prompted. All presentations will be recorded and shared to all registered delegates following the conference. If you require any of the conference presentation materials translated, please contact Megan Truxell at CASA. Okay, now that last bit of housekeeping is done, it is my pleasure to introduce our final speaker of the conference. Tim May is a fourth-generation dairy farmer, seasoned speaker, and influential social media advocate from Rockwood, Ontario. He holds a degree in animal science from the University of Guelph and operates his family farm with his two wonderful children and his wife, a talented veterinarian. His registered Holstein herd and two jerseys are featured through various social channels where Tim inspires his followers to learn and share more about agriculture. Tim is extremely passionate about agriculture and consumer education. Over the past 40+ years, his family has given farm tours to schools, general interest groups, and individuals. I've even received an invitation to come milk some cows. It is from the school children that he got his nickname, Farmer Tim. Tim uses his platform to educate consumers on life through the lens of a farmer, including the rewards, motivation, and mental health struggles that come with it. Tim's sense of humor, wisdom, and transparency has been key to building public trust with his followers and for the agriculture industry. Tim's efforts to promote agriculture and break the stigma of mental health have earned him the Farm and Food Care Champion Award, Jersey Canada's Certificate of Recognition, and most recently, the King Charles III Coronation Medal at the Senate in Ottawa. Congratulations, Tim. Tim speaks globally, but he feels most at home on the farm. And as we've discovered, we're practically neighbors about 10 minutes apart and fellow University of Guelph alumni. Tim, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you today. And now, Tim, the floor is all yours.
Yay, thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here. I didn't know I was the last speaker of your conference. It's usually save the best to last, but I don't know. I haven't heard the rest of them. So, and I apologize. I'm looking a little bit shaggy today. I literally just hopped off the tractor and actually I forgot that I'm actually talking to farm safety people. I slowly stopped the tractor and put it at a gear, and then I slowly dismounted and checked my surroundings. So trying to be safe on the farm is pretty important. So without further ado, I'm going to try to share my screen again here. So beautiful day here in Southern Ontario. I do have my Dairy Farmers Manitoba mug that I'm drinking some coffee of. I'm not sure if you could see it, but there it is, because I know some of you are listening from Manitoba. Without further ado, so my presentation today is Farming the Fields of Social Media. I do actually have a new presentation I'm working on, but I haven't got it done yet. So this is an older one that I kind of amalgamated just special for you guys. So the Farm Safety Edition. And this is the very first slide I ever did in a presentation. I had to get used to using a laptop and all these things. Back in my university days, there wasn't much of technology. But my daughter Abby, back when she was in high school, she designed this for me. So I always put it in my presentations. And I said to her, it's a great slide, Abby, but I see there's a Red International tractor and a John Deere tractor. And I said, why is there no one driving the John Deere tractor? And she said, because it's broken, Dad. So you can tell what kind of tractors I like. And going back to university days, you know, there was no cell phone, there was no texting. And I have spoken at the university a few times about social media. So it kind of blows me away that it wasn't even a thing back when I was in school. So we've come a long way. And I'm what you call an advocate, or someone who advocates for agriculture in a positive way. So if you hear the term advocate, that's what it means. And I'm sure many of the people in the audience today are also advocates. So thank you very much for sharing your story of agriculture. So this, back in the days when I was on Twitter or X, which I'm not really anymore, this hashtag came out, actual living farmer, and I thought that's kind of neat. There isn't many farmers around, really, less than 2% of us, right? So it kind of got me to thinking that it's our responsibility to tell our story. We have organizations that speak for us. We have um, all kinds of, like, Dairy Farmers of Ontario, farm safety associations, but farmers really need to be telling their stories too. They can't do it all for us, and it means a lot actually coming from the farmer themselves. So I do think it's our responsibility, and we're always telling people, you need to go talk to a farmer, you need to go visit a farm, but the chances of actually coming across a farmer, an actual living farmer on the streets, is pretty rare, especially in the urban areas. So we need to do our share. And it's our story. I've been trying to tell the story of our farm, the story of agricultural in general. Um, and for those of you who thinks it's someone else's job to do that, or some organizations getting paid for that, that's partly true. But there's other people out there who want to tell that story for you, and you may not like the moral to that story. And then we're rock stars. So let's face it, that farmers are actually pretty cool. We're not that common. We're kind of a novelty to people. People are really curious of what's going on in agriculture. There's people who move from the big city and they buy a little plot of land and maybe do a whole Netflix series on their adventures on their little farm or something. People are really so far removed that anything that's involved in agriculture, they're fascinated about. So use that rock star status to your advantage, and we can make a difference. So when I got into social media, that's a story for another day. I resisted social media for a long time, and I still kind of resist it, but you can make a huge difference as an individual, and you don't always know or directly what that difference or that influence you make is, but I guarantee you make an influence. Let's get a little bit of negativity out of the way. 99.9% of the time, things are positive, but there's always a bit of negativity. Here's Janine way back when I started on social media. She's from the city, loved learning about farming, and I said thanks. And then out of the blue, um, this person's like, yes, keep on touching animal's nipple, you sicko. So that's what I call an internet troll. So someone who's just trolling, they're not adding to the conversation. They can disagree, but what's that going to do, right? Being just generally mean, right? And then here's Jackie Ray of Sunshine. Uh, do you ever suckle on the udders of a cow yourself? And no, I have not. But I thought, what an odd comment to say, right? And then I divide my trolls into three categories. So here's the good. So there's a photo of me and a couple twin calves on my Facebook page from a while ago. I had a little more hair back then. And then oops, here I am. A friend actually on Twitter at the time, who was Dutch, said that one of his family in Holland sent him this, and they knew me. And so someone stole my photo. They put respect. Farmers care for their animals 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's a positive message, but it's still kind of, they could have tagged me or they could have asked if they could use a photo. But that got a lot of traction in Holland, which is fine. Then some of you may know Andrew Campbell, fresh air farmer, another dairy farmer in Ontario. Has done great strides for social media. Farm 365 was his thing back in the day, and I remember this photo. And then I was doing some research on animal welfare, and this came up. So an animal activist group took that photo, turned it into something negative. So that's pretty awful. Like, he's trying to make something positive, and they're trying to turn it into something negative and stealing it at the same time. Then there's the ugly. Um, there's people like David Wolf. I don't like to pick on people really generally, but here he is. He usually post things about, like kittens playing with yarn and families having fun and cute things like that, right? But here he is sharing about the benefits of non-dairy beverages, which they all have their benefits. I refuse to call them milk, but there's nothing wrong with those, and people have their choice, right? But then on the bottom, he's bashing dairy milk, saying all these horrible things about it. So you can tout a product for its benefits, but there's no need to bash another one to try to promote your own. But the thing with him, he's got a few 100 million followers on social media, but behind the scenes, he blames modern agriculture for all the woes of all the health issues and environmental issues of the world, and he tries to sell his snake oil products to counteract that. So that's it's just not a very nice way to do it. And I'm not the only one who agrees. At least once a year, go somewhere you've never been before, and this guy says a science class would be a great start for you. So anyway, now yeah, that's it for picking on people. Also, fear is a huge thing on social media. People like to scare people into things. Um, and Here's an example. This is at my local grocery store in Rockwood. It's called Ripple, and it looks like nipple, which is kind of funny in itself. But and it's kind of expensive. But it's soy-free, nut-free, vegan, gluten-free, lactose-free, and that's totally fine. It's a nutritious pea beverage, which kind of made me snicker a little bit too, but nothing wrong with good nutritious peas. And it says dairy free as it should be. And I thought that kind of rubbed me a bit the wrong way. It could have said dairy free, but dairy free as it should be. So I went on their website, and sure enough, they were bashing the dairy industry right, left, and center, blaming us for environmental issues. And meanwhile, they were actually shipping their peas across the ocean from Europe. For their product, right? So nobody's innocent in all this. And to be fair, they're actually bashing the almond industry too. So I guess misery likes company. These are some peppers that my wife got at the local Costco in Guelph, and they're both Canadian. They could be both from the same farm, as far as I know, but one has the non-GMO project certified label on it. There's no GMO peppers. Like I have no problem with advertising and what people need to do, but like people do these things just to make things try to look better than something else when it really isn't. So it annoys me a little bit. Then there's people like Dr. Neil Barnard. Here I am picking on someone again. He's an MD in his white lab coat. Nice looking guy, very professional looking. Talking about the harms of milk to the environment. It causes your hip fractures and increases your risk of dying. And all the while, they're sharing literature and research studies that have no scientific backing. They're not that peer reviewed. They may be one off. They may have been debunked and disproven. And he's actually part of the physicians committee. I don't know if you can see it on there. And on this physician committee, there's not really very many physicians. A lot of them are doctors of psychology and stuff like that, which is fine. But they get a lot of their funding from animal rights organizations, PETA, to help spread their vegan doctrines, which is fine. I have nothing wrong with vegans or vegetarian or anything like that. But using fear to promote your lifestyle isn't right in my books. So then, of course, on social media, this is kind of what got me into it. This picture came across about milk with the pus and the growth hormones and antibiotics, and even worse, here's one with blood in it and causing arthritis and cancer and MS and all these things. And go to their website and check out more, right? So that's trying to scare people out of it. Meanwhile, less than 2% of us, or even less than that, us are dairy farmers or farmers, know the truth about what goes into it and the care and the welfare and the quality, right? So trying to get that information to consumers is extremely challenging with all that misinformation and fear mongering. And then farmers aren't that much better either. Fake dairy is scary. It's trying to scare people away with all the stuff that's in almond beverage. I've never tried almond beverage. I'm sure it's healthy and good for you. I'm sure it's tested safe. Um, but it's an option for some people. Or plant-based meats. I've never tried them either. I'm not a huge supporter, but trying to scare people with what's in it. Titanium dioxide is a whitener used in paint. But anyone and one of us with a science background knows that this is kind of misinforming people and trying to scare them away from things, right? So if we don't like people doing it to us, we shouldn't do it to them. So another example is blueberry, one of nature's most perfect foods, kind of like milk, right? So, but here is the scientific or the chemical breakdown of a blueberry. So a lot of these things I can't pronounce or I don't know what they are, but that doesn't mean it's not good for you, right? This came across my feed many years ago. People said it looked like a bunch of people at a rock concert when it's actually a bunch of combines picking cotton. But it made me think of one that I saw more recently. Pigs in captivity are not given any space to move. And if you look at this photo, you think, wow, that's terrific, horrible. You might just skip by it. But if you actually look at it, it's a bunch of potatoes in a storage bin. And Mickelson Farms had posted this about their potato storage. So it doesn't take much to throw things out of proportion. One of my very first things I ever saw on social media was this one, the real color of cow's milk. And you see this bloody milk in a jar. It's not a very good photo. But the post went on to say, the cows are milked so much and so often, and the milkers are attached to them 24 hours a day, that they actually bleed. And then the farmer goes on to actually bleach the milk before it's sent to consumers. And all milk looks like this. And we kind of laugh at that. But you tell that to the hundreds of thousands of people that shared this and commented on it and liked it, and we're throwing farmers under the bus, saying, like, I can't believe farmers would do that to me, and I had no idea that they did this. Thanks for letting me know. But not once did they check the source of that information. They just get scared into believing it. So as a farmer on social media, what do you do? Whatever you do, don't reshare something like that. Farmers are the worst at resharing things they don't like, because that gets the post more traction and the photos more traction, and that's the way the algorithms work on social media. So don't share it. Don't even comment on it, actually. Some cases, maybe that's warranted if it's like a celebrity or something. But what I did is I just shared the milk going in my own milk jar, talked about animal welfare, talked about milk quality. I didn't even mention the previous post. And here's one on Twitter, same thing. I dye the milk you drink white so you don't see the pus and blood when you drink it, and that's got like 17.5 thousand retweets, like it's people are, I don't know, they believe anything. Activism. This was, I don't know, it was 100 or 200. It was 100 activists stormed a farm in Australia. It was a young family, father, two children, very remote area. They surrounded the family, hurled insults at them for hours. Well, a couple hours, I think. And they were so remote, there was no one able to help them very quickly. So, yeah, and that's pretty horrific to think that could happen to anyone, anywhere. In my own world, Dairy Farmers of Ontario sends updates about activism. This was in 2019. The Official Animal Rights March was in Toronto. And a couple days before that, someone was taking photos of my farm sign, and there was supposed to be a group come within an hour of Toronto to kind of invade a dairy farm. So I was a little bit scared. That kind of fits my area, and being on social media, I was like, maybe I could be a target. I'm a pretty nice guy, and I don't post negative things. I don't poke the bear, and I support veganism. So anyway, but Dairy Farmers Ontario actually sent a couple armed guards to the end of my lane. That was a bit of a nail-bitey day. And this photo here, there was a gentleman from the Animal Liberation Front out of the UK has sent me a message on Messenger and asked me why I enjoyed abusing cattle. That was like the day before this march. And Actually, it was a little bit after. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But he was scary man. He had a couple machine guns on it. So it was a real picture of him, and he was meant business. So I ignored him. I don't have Messenger anymore because he saw that I read the message, but because I didn't reply, he thought he would share my profile post about me, Ask Farmer Tim, and then he shared it to all his little friends. This went to the what was it called, the Light Movement, I think it was. They have hundreds of thousands of followers. I actually ended up blocking the UK. You can block a country on social media because it was getting so overwhelming and scary on my social media. And anyway, it was a bit of a nightmare. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. Here's some of the comments. One of the ones was, for all the dairy farmers, your greatest contribution will be your funeral. That was one from a follower, or not a follower, but a person in Toronto, where this all kind of started from. And you're a very sick person. And then just for another example, this didn't have to do with that attack on my social media, but I posted about a farmer that had taken his life. It was actually around this time. He was setting up for Halloween, loved having the kids come by. Day after Halloween, he went down the back lane of his farm and he took his life with a gun. And so I posted a little memory thing for him, and everyone was giving their condolences except for I meant to hide his face, but um, this Chris gentleman, he said it must be hard on the psyche to kill so many other animals. He didn't say sorry for your loss. He just accused the death on being a farmer. And if you look closely at his profile photo, it says choose kindness. So that's kind of ironic. So how else do we battle all these myths and misconceptions as farmers? So I take e-transfer or cash. Anyone nearby can just drop by me some money or send me a check. Anyway, just kidding. Um, I don't really get money off of social media for doing much. It's not why I'm on social media. I know some people make it into business. It's always been a hobby, and I just do it because I love to help people. But the one time I did gain on social media is I ran over my Yeti cup with the tractor. And then I started the Yeti Wars. So I reached out to Yeti to see if they would fix my favorite Yeti mug. I really liked it. And they never did. I had a feed company, Suregain, actually come out and offer me if I bought a pallet or a ton of feed, calf starter, I get a free Yeti. And I thought, don't want that. That's kind of sneaky. So I thought that was kind of funny that they wanted me to do that. And then I had lots of people reach out with all kinds of goodies and lots of Yeti mugs. And finally, I think I ended up with like 35 Yeti mugs. But Chili Moose, which is a Canadian company, reached out, and proceeds from their sales go to help the environment and the turtles and things like that. So ended up finding a new company that was Canadian. Had a lot of fun during it. So it was a kind of win-win for everybody. And there's our local feed mill had brought us, my son and I, a mug each. So I think the number one thing about being an advocate is building consumer trust and keeping consumer trust. So can you imagine growing up in a big city like Edmonton or Toronto, and you don't know any farmers, you have no relatives that are farmers, no friends that are farmers. You've never been to a farm, like it's a real challenge just to go to a real working farm, right? Maybe you've gone to a farmer's market or a grocery store, but then your friend is having a birthday. You thought, oh, I'm gonna have a birthday party for my friend. So you get this big charcuterie board, and your friend comes over, and they're like, oh, I can't believe that you have some cheese because did you not hear what they do to those animals? The poor cows, right? So you're like, oh, I don't know. So you go on the internet and you look up animal abuse on dairy farms, and you just get inundated with all kinds of things about animal abuse, and it makes it look like it happens over and over and over again on every farm across Canada, or across the world, which really it doesn't. One bad egg makes it bad for everybody. So we need to either give people the tools they need to help with this research, or realize what they're reading when they're looking things up, or just beat them to the punch and get them to understand what really happens behind farms. And just a little reminder, we always want to talk about Thank a Farmer. If you ate today, thank a farmer, which was actually built on a mental health thing. So it's a great slogan. But farmers just want to be trusted, just like we want consumers to trust us, just like I was saying. So on social media, you have a lot of power as an individual. As a farmer, I share my good days, a bumper crop or a birth of a newborn calf. On bad days, a loss of a crop, hailstorm or drought, or um, the death of an animal, which doesn't happen often, but it's horrific. And there's lots of bad things that happen on the farm. And be surprised that my bad day posts are probably the most popular, because I think people are just intrigued with negativity sometimes. And some days are a little shittier than others, of course. Share hobbies outside of agriculture. One of mine is backyard astronomy, which I loved as a kid. It's kind of not the smartest hobby as a dairy farmer. You got to be up late when the sky gets dark in the summer, and in the winter it's kind of cold to be out there when it's dark earlier. But I do enjoy it nonetheless. And remind people that we are family-owned farms, generally still, right? People think about I hate the word factory farms. They think about mega farms and don't realize that farms big and small are owned by families, right? And their neighbors and part of their community. So show them that. You tell them that. So I talk about my mom and her background, and just bringing a meal out to the field, and how they're part of the family and the operation. We work together. There she is there. Loving sheep. She was a shepherdess way back when she was young, and she always loved sheep. And sadly passed away a year or so ago. And I share that loss too. And it is a mental health thing, and it's part of life. And it's one thing that connects everybody in the world, that we have people we love and we have people that we lose. And my dad, one of the heroes of my life, here he is. One time he was getting hard time getting around. I couldn't get up on the tractors anymore, which really frustrated him. And I said, Dad, you need to take a break. It's probably not, you don't need to be doing this anymore. And he got really frustrated with me, and he built an extra step on all the tractors so he could get up there. And I realized he did it because he wanted to do it, not because he had to do it. And there he is, another example, feeding the animals. He couldn't get up and down that manger to feed them. So he built this little, I call it a walker feed cart. And it's got a little pusher to push the hay in front of the wheels that can drop down on a rope, and little funnels to funnel the grain away from the wheels and into the animals and stuff. So he was very proud of that, and he loved to build things. And he also passed away last year. So I took quite a long break from social media. You might not have heard much from me. And it's been a challenging time, but things are getting better now. My daughter Abby just graduated from the University of Guelph, and she finished a college course. She's working with adults with exceptionalities. An awesome person, and she's not directly involved in the farm, but she still loves farm life. And be wary when you want to get tagged in a post. Well, here she is. I don't know, there's no sound. She's always up for antics, and she's just a super well-rounded person. My son Andy, who's holding down the fort while I'm doing this presentation today. So thank you, Andy, for getting me out of some chores. And my wife Kirsten, a veterinarian. She's done large, she's done small, she's done mixed. She's worked for industry. She has her own first of its kind in Canada weight loss program for pets. And on the side, and she does euthanasia, mobile euthanasia. And on the side, she helps with turtles and volunteers. And all summer, she's busy with hundreds of turtles coming through our doors. As a first responder, they come from all over Ontario. If they're deceased, you can take the eggs out of them, which can get incubated, and then they go off to Peterborough to the Turtle Conservation Center, where they have thousands and thousands of turtles each year hit by cars and predated and diseased and stuff. And all 8 species of turtles in Ontario are threatened to some degree. Then my older sister, Sherry, she has special needs. Probably part of the reason my daughter got inspired to work with adults with exceptionality. So Sherry has taught me a lot, and we all love her to bits. And then share things about your pets in your life. So here's Lila. She's a Nova Scotia duck tolling retriever, a Canadian breed. And there's Harvest the cat. He's quite the cat, and he's had some really inspirational posts, and people love him. Remind people that we're consumers. So I don't just have keep a little stash of food for myself and sell people all the garbage stuff. It's not like that. We actually eat what we produce. And as a farmer, I go to farmers markets, I go to the grocery store, I even go to the dairy aisle, and people are like, "You go buy milk?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't really have time to whip up cheese and yogurt and and stuff like that." And it shows people a lot about the integrity of you and your industry when you go buy your own products, right? Talk about compassion. There's livestock, and they say there's dead stock. It's not very often, thank goodness, but when animals are sick, we do stress, we do lose sleep. Preventative medicine is the number one thing in a farm. You don't want them to get sick. It's sad. You don't want things to suffer, but we suffer along with them when that does happen. Talk about things outside of the farm. So here's a little rabbit that was just about caught up in the baler there when I was baling hay, and I picked it up, took a quick picture, rescued it, and I said nobody wants to find a hair in their food, especially the cows. So just little things that you do like that as a farmer, people love to see. Another quick example is chopping weeds in the pasture field. I didn't chop this milkweed because there is a monarch caterpillar on it, and I like monarch caterpillars, and I thought I'd take a picture and post it, and it just kind of went viral. People are like, "Oh wow, you care about them that much?" I'm like, it's an easy thing to do. So I think farmers do that kind of stuff all the time. We just need to let people know we do it. Mental health. I do have a presentation on mental health. It's probably my favorite presentation to give. It's fun, but it's also sad, and it's educational. But it is a big thing, and I'm a very proud supporter of breaking the stigma. And we talk about animal welfare, but we need to talk about farmer welfare too. And just a quick example, before the pandemic, 1 in 8 farmers actually talked about or considered taking their life. And after the pandemic, it was 1 in 4. So there is a need out there still, but it's getting better. Just to quickly to go through this, I thought if you're on social media, which I advise you all to do, and if you do get bullied, and I don't get bullied very often, thank goodness, but first of all, don't poke the bear in the first place. There's some farmers that are really popular on social media that all they do is talk about activism, and they poke fun at people, and they get a lot of negativity. And great for them if they can handle that stress, and they get lots of following because of it. But I sure like heck don't want to be those kind of people attracted to me or my page or my farm, and share positive messages. And always be polite, even if you disagree. You're representing your industry. You want to be professional and act like a professional. And some people should not be in social media. If you can't bite your tongue, then stay off. Some farmers are actually the worst on my page. Block, hide, delete comments when necessary. Thankfully, it's not very necessary, but it's there if you need it. Take screenshots of conversations, report to the media platform, report to the police. Farmers have been attacked personally, either verbally, physically, online, whatever. But it's something to take seriously. And it's also great for doing presentations like this if you come across something interesting. And then organizations like Farm and Food Care, Agriculture More Than Ever, there's all kinds of organizations that'll help you out. I'm sure farm safety organizations as well. Farm Alliances Online, I've gotten to know a lot of the social media advocates across Canada, even in the US, and we kind of work together a little bit. So it's great. And just remember, you're never too important to be nice to people. And would you say to someone's face what you say to them online? So people are like, the armchair warriors and keyboard warriors, and they really get into these heated arguments on social media. But if you were actually standing face to face with that person, looking at their children, or or their parents or whatever, would you say those things to them really? Some people would, but I think most people wouldn't. Being an advocate is about inspiring. So, like I said before, agriculture more than ever, farm food care. There's links on there on how to become an advocate, how to tell your story, information you can share. But agriculture, and if you're looking at this and thinking, hey, what do I have to offer? I don't really have much, but I tell you, my farm, the barn was built in the 60s. It's got a leaky roof. The dividers are falling apart. We got some old tractors. I still use my grandpa's 1953 Super M to do seeding and stuff like that. People love technology and new things, but they want to know more about you and your family and what you believe in, and how you care for your animals and how you care for your land. So just keep that in mind. This is like a couple neighbor kid. I invited him out to the farm one day. I saw him walking down the road, and he was from the city originally. And he was all excited when I invited him in to give him a little tour. I love to get to know my neighbors and kind of keep them on my side, but also educate them and just offering for him to show a calf and stuff like that. That means a lot to people, and it does a lot for your community and your reputation. Being a mediator, I turned the light on in the barn one morning and I almost pet the skunk, I remember. But it's not always easy, of course, with all the US trade stuff going on. I won't talk too much about that. But as a Canadian dairy farmer or a Canadian farmer, it's being on social media. I'd say half or over half my followers are actually American. A lot of them think I'm American, but very proud Canadian. But trying to keep the peace is sometimes really challenging. We have a lot of things in common, and most things are the same, but sometimes there can be a bit of a challenge. Educating is a huge part. I probably would have been a teacher if I wasn't a farmer. But I get to do a little bit of teaching on social media. This is my niece Tessa from downtown Toronto. That's where they live, my in-laws, and no farming background there, but she loves coming to the farm. And try to educate in a positive way. I don't know, as farmers, you see things like this. This was a hard one for me, but I thought it was an interesting thing to make you think. This beef cow was in a chute. I don't know if it's getting trimmed or treated with something. Nothing wrong with that. But the farmer demonstrated the putting a bag over its nose to suffocate it a little bit to make it struggle to get up, which works. And I've actually seen it done. It doesn't have any lasting harm to the animal, but it's not nice to look at. The alternative for a stubborn animal like that is maybe she won't get up, or maybe she's going to injure herself more by being down. So it is a tough one. It's something that worked in a pinch. It probably no lasting harm, and then animal went on its way to live a good life. But it's very traumatizing for consumers to look at it. And I read the comments of this post, and it was either the farmers were, yeah, that's a great trick, or the consumers were like, oh my gosh, like poor cow. So you're saying that I have to like suffocate my meat before I eat it, kind of thing. So you got to be careful what you post and think like a consumer. Little things like back to basics. I just grabbed some wheat, oats, and barley from the field and took a picture and talked about what each one's for, and people just love that kind of thing. They were like, yeah, we're driving by and always wondering what's going on in the field and what it is and what's it for. So try to think like a consumer, get back to basics. Even about milking cows, we talk about animal rights, we talked about hormones, we talked about all these things, but how does a cow actually get milked? People are fascinated to know. keep things simple. So you can write big long posts, but I guarantee unless you make it funny or sad or something, people aren't going to read it. They don't want to be preached at. This is way back in the beginning. I made this little rudimentary pie chart just showing what cows actually do all day. So most of the day isn't being milked. It's socializing, lying, and eating, right? So people think they're just getting milked all day long, but you can show that easily in a little chart. And then also I said, like, think like a consumer. So as a dairy farmer, I get farm magazines all the time. And this one, and they have cows with beautiful big udders full of milk. And I had someone say, why do the cows always have their udders look like they're going to explode? Is it all the hormones you give them? And I said, no, it's like they don't usually look like that. So people are like, oh, wow, I didn't know that, because they don't see cows like that on media. They always see them with big udders. Talk about things outside the industry. This was, it's not just about me and my farm. It's about transportation. It's about veterinarians. It's about accounting. It's about feed nutrition. It's about everything. So use that to your industry's advantage as well. Talk about respecting land. This was a snowmobile trail that went by all these signs, and by the end of the winter, it actually covered that entire backfield and smothered it in my hay. Um, so that's what you get for living near a town or urban area. Some more examples. This is a farm, 2 farms down from us. It's a full subdivision now, but we do farm right up next to those houses. It is like farming under a microscope, but I have gotten to know every single one of those people in those houses, I think, except for one still. And I've made friends with them, and they've invited me in and brought me coffee and all kinds of things. So you can turn something that could be negative into something positive. Talk about sharing the road. And anytime I talk about that, there's always somebody that says, thank you for sharing this. I didn't realize that you just want it, you're doing your job, and you don't mean to be driving on the road during rush hour, but and that you're stressed about it too. So they appreciate that. Same thing about respecting the environment. I talk about garbage and stuff like that and the environmental farm plans. I think 3 times now people have said because of that we've decided to adopt a road and we clean up the garbage in the ditches. So we appreciate what you do. I try to educate in fun ways. So if you want to know what's going on here, you're gonna have to follow me on social media. I'm mostly on Facebook now. Used to be on Instagram. I kind of am still, but not so much. But that's mainly where you're going to find me. And of course, farm safety. So you guys are probably like, oh my goodness, what's going on here? And exactly. So I remember this photo. I found it, put it on this special for you guys, and that's never going to happen again. We know what can happen in a heartbeat. And to make you feel better, I actually had a neighbor 3 farms down was driving by, saw my dad out doing this, and came and give my dad proper heck. So now when I see it happen, I give someone else heck for a gentle heck for doing it. So running on fenders and stuff. I don't need to get into the horror stories because I know you guys know it, but I'm with you on all that. Of course, farm safety. You've seen these quotes. You know the stats. I'm going to keep this slide in my presentations from now on, just so it's there. I haven't had a slide about farm safety really in my presentations before, so thank you for having me and reminding me to put it in there. And there's my little vet wrap fix job. It was a pretty bad gash actually, but I should have known better. Another thing that got me thinking, I have a wedding ring on, and talking about hopping off the tractor to get to my presentation. That's how people lose their fingers, as you know. So I do have a silicone ring that is awesome. I posted about it a couple years ago, and it kind of went viral actually. And people were like, "Want to know where you get it?" And my talked about their injuries and stuff like that. So you can do your part to share your story and share ideas. Silo safety, I just talked about that not too long ago. I actually tagged you guys in my post. I don't know if you saw it, so I won't talk about it. Terrifying thing. Talked about the silo gas and my experience with it. Just to quickly go over, I was filled the silo and silo gas, as you know what it is. Left the blower running, lots of air in there. I'm very safe about it. But the cable got caught down the chute. I went down to get the cable. I thought it was just a few feet down, but it was a little farther than I thought. It's kind of getting overcome by gas that was caught in the chute. And I thought I'm either going to go up and die or I'm going to go down through the gas, which was the closest way to get out to the bottom. Of course, got overcome by gas, coughed, and my guts out, felt better, Googled it, was terrified that I might die in my sleep, went to the hospital. They took it seriously because I was a farmer in the hospital, which doesn't happen often. They kept me overnight for observation. My oxygen dipped a little bit, but thankfully I was okay. And we know that some farmers don't have as good an outcome. This tractor, it's, I don't know if you can't see it on there right now, but it does say no riders. A Dutch gentleman was working for us for a year, a good friend of ours. And I was cutting hay. I was 15 at the time, going up a hill at the back of the farm and not very fast. And he wanted to get up on the tractor. My dad sent him to check on me. And I said, no, wait till I stop. But he didn't listen. And I turned around and I saw him trying to climb up. I went for the clutch and his wooden shoe slipped on the step. I drove over his feet and legs and torso and head with the back tire. And thankfully I didn't stop on top of him. That's how quick it happened. He kind of sprung up and is bleeding from his mouth. And long story short, he ended up with loosening the teeth, all the teeth in his head. He had cut his lip or cut his tongue. That's why his mouth is bleeding from the mouth. And he had no lasting bruised feet. His wooden shoes saved his feet. But that summer was a dry summer like this one, and he happened to land in a little spring in the field, and it kind of pushed him down in that spring. And he was up water skiing a couple weeks after that, and his brother came and worked for us for 3 or 4 years after that. I thought it was for revenge, but it wasn't. So anyway, it's a happy ending, but it's a terrifying time, and it really taught me a lot. And there he is, back visiting me a couple years ago. We talk about technology, what we plant, try to relate it to consumers. There's ultrasound, like consumers use for when they're pregnant. This is a Precision Extra, which tests ketones in animals, just like diabetics use. Same exact thing. Here's my buddy, Dr. Rob Swackhammer, trimming a cow's foot, and we think, wow, that's great animal care. But then if you look at her, she's got a rope around her head, she's got a chain around her neck, she's got a belly strap up there, she's got her leg jacked up the back, she's in this cage. If you're not explaining what's going on there, then people think it's pretty horrific, and farmers don't always explain what's going on, or someone could steal that photo and turn it into something else. So always think about what you post, and like I said, think like a consumer. Talk about how technology has changed over the years, the horseshoe I found in that field. Entertainment, you gotta like have a little bit of fun in what you post, or people aren't gonna want to follow you too long. This is a little poll I did on what people call the last meal of the day, dinner or supper. And our family always called the last meal supper, but some people call it dinner. So it was just kind of a fun thing to do. Using the jerseys in our farm to have a little fun as well. This is in Guelph, the stag shop, and the lights weren't working, so I took a quick photo of the egg shop. So I don't, hopefully no farmers wandered in there by accident. Roll up the rim. I'm kind of happy that it's back again. Haven't won a tractor, but it's just little things like that always make a farmer's day. If you're a salesperson, if you can bring a coffee out to a farmer, that's great, because we don't have them really next door. So just remember that. And then just share photos. So here's a laneway in the fall. People are like, wow, that's so beautiful. Pictures of the barn and heifers. This is from a recent one. There's Harvest the cat. Some more. I just threw some fall photos in here because it's fall. Um, there, and then it's soon going to be winter. I hear it's going to be an abrupt change to winter. Some of the snow, some snow, and then it won't be long until there's lots of snow on the ground. And then we'll be doing our ice cream harvest from the cows. It can get pretty cold in Ontario too. And to remember that, part of the reason I don't do much on Instagram anymore, because it was just full of pretty pictures and it's great. It wasn't always educational, but, I'd take this nice picture of the cows. There's a cow peeing. She kind of ruined it, kind of made it funny. But behind all those happy photos and pretty photos and perfect farms, there is always controversy. There is always struggle. And it's not always as happy as it looks. So always balance your positive and negative. You want to tell consumers that you love what you do, but you also have these unique challenges that they need to know about. But just don't dwell on it. And share the holidays. We're getting the home stretch here. Things like St. Patrick's Day and Halloween coming up, and Valentine's Day, and Thanksgiving, of course, and Christmas. So people like to share these holidays along with you. As a dairy farmer, I have calves be born, and calves are cute. And when there's a heifer, a female born, I would always get my followers to help name it. I think like 2,000 name choices was my record one. But sure enough, someone will like message me or email me behind the scenes and say, my Aunt Gertrude died last week. Could you please name it after Gertrude? So ended up with a calf named Gertrude. So use those things to your advantage. And then last thing I kind of want to talk about is thinking outside the box. Because it's great to talk to a farm organization or get read something in a farm paper, but how do we get our message outside our own silo, right? Out to the people that need to hear it. Farm and Food Care had this garden club for a while, which I thought was awesome because people of all walks of life garden, and they would send them these little kits, and then in their posts and stuff, they'd share ideas, and they'd also talk about agriculture and compare it to being a gardener, right? This is a painting group that follows my page, and the big picture in the top left is the original. It's actually a cow peeing in the middle of the photo, and some people actually captured that in their photos. So I thought that was kind of fun. They asked permission, they paint it, and I call this a Monet or a Picasso. My son's cow Vanilla. She doesn't post much anymore. She's kind of retired on the farm. She actually does fetch, believe it or not. And we had a lot of fun posting with her in an educational way. And I am actually in the middle of writing a story about how Vanilla got her spots. And if you want to know how she got her spots, you're going to have to check out my page. And of course, there's clickbait. And I've tried to avoid clickbait. We all get sucked into it. But to do a little experiment, I posted this little video of the cows at pasture, just a nice, beautiful day. And there's one that looks like she's half dead, but they're just enjoying the sunshine. And, it gets a few thousand views and a bunch of likes and stuff like that. And then a couple weeks later, I took the same video, posted it, and I put warning, viewer discretion advised, shocking footage of what happens behind the Canadian dairy farm. Don't say I didn't warn you, the horror of it all. So then all of a sudden you get 1 million views, 1,000 comments, and a couple thousand shares. And that's like people like negativity, unfortunately. But it was kind of fun, but also not fun at the same time. It attracted a bit of activism. Here's another video of the wheat or the barley blowing in the wind, and something simple that you take for granted like that. 4.2 million views that week. It reached about 10 million people. Things that you take for granted, people want to see. This was a policeman from Manitoba. Well, actually, he's from Ontario, but he came from a farm in Manitoba, and he stopped one day. We were sitting on the deck. was a rare time. We're taking a break, and I thought, oh no, what did my children do now? But no, I have good kids. But he said, I'm here on official police business. I want to take photos of your belted Galloway, um, or also known as Oreo cows. And until that day, I also didn't know they were police car cows. So I said, you can take a picture if I can take a picture of you taking a picture of them. And I shared it, and it got shared across, the world, North America, police stations and stuff. I thought that was pretty cool. He got some negativity for that too, but I thought it was pretty nice for him to have, stop in and have some personal connections with people in the area. I'm part of my Rockwood Friends and Neighbors group, which I think that every farmer should be a part of their local social media group, local town. There weren't many farmers on there. There's a lot of weird stuff getting shared, but now people know me. They'll tag me in things. They'll ask me questions on there, and just to show you that neighbors don't always get along. Someone formed the friendly Rockwood Friends and Neighbors because they're annoyed with the negativity in the Rockwood Friends and Neighbors, but a lot of the same people are in the same group. So it is a little bizarre how people get on, right? National Cat Day, shared photos of some of my barn cats at the time, and then to my dismay, I was inundated by thousands of photos, well, hundreds of photos of people's cats from their apartments in, Toronto and Sydney, Australia, and across the world. And I realized I'm always sharing my animals and my life with them, and it was a way for them to share back with me, right? Home stretch, Rockwood Farmers Parade of Lights, the best night parade in the world, in my opinion. It was actually the first one in Canada, possibly North America. It's been running for many, 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 many decades. And we've been in it since the beginning pretty much. And there's no advertising. It's invitation only. We go through our neighboring community, and it brings the consumers, the non-farming consumers and the farming consumers together. So it's a great night. A lot of work, but it's a great night. And this was during COVID. It was a drive-by parade. So Andy had Vanilla all decked out. So people loved it. And there's Vanilla again at the local fair. After she got shown, we actually walked her around the fairgrounds, which it maybe shouldn't have done that without some permission, but we walked her around and we pooped and scooped with a shovel. And she met all kinds of people. They're coming up and touching her. And one guy, I would say he was in his 20s, he thought she was a goat, maybe because she was white. I don't know. Someone else thought she was a pig, believe it or not. So it's great to get people out to the animals. A couple slides left here. This was Farm and Food Care actually reached out to me, and they had Owen Roberts from the University of Guelph. Was going to do a story for the Toronto Star and the Metro News that goes on the subways. So it's going to reach millions of consumers in Toronto, the urban population. So we actually did one on how I tried to get away for a day. I had a young co-op student from high school helping on the farm, and it was just for a day. And sure enough, a cow decided to calve, and he had never seen a cow calve before. So we did this calving during FaceTime on our phones. And it turned out well. So that kind of got their foot in the door to get some more stories out there. Helped get a milking robot donated to my local museum, which I thought was pretty awesome. They had a lot of school kids through there, and it's great to learn about the older part of agriculture, which I personally love the history of it. But it's good to see the modern parts too. And for those of you who support advocates like me or any advocate, thank you for helping us with the comments. There's only one of me, but 140,000 or whatever of you. So I can't get to the comments, and thanks for sharing our posts and giving us the support because we really need it. And just to sum it up, advocating is about family and community, compassion for animals and people, being kind and understanding, inspiring others, educating in a positive way, having fun. Like if it turns into a job, like sometimes just take a break, step away, finding common ground, and thinking outside the box. And like I said at the beginning, you can make a lot of difference in someone's life I've had vegans reach out to me and say they've added dairy back into their diet because of what I've posted, and they realize that farmers aren't monsters and they do care for their animals. And I said, that's fine. Your like food choices are up to you. I've had people with my mental health reach out and say, because of you, you've saved my life. That's happened 3 or 4 times. Something I've posted or said or some support I've given. So, and those are just ones I know about. So I know that you do make a difference on social media. Don't let the negativity get to you. And even though I do like my red tractors, it does take teamwork to do this. So as an individual, it's great, but as a group, we're even stronger. So have a safe harvest season, and thanks for the memories.
Well, thank you, Tim. And your passion has had us run right up to the line. So I'm asking everyone if people want to stay a little bit longer. We've got some great questions in the chat for you. So first, I just want to say great presentation, and I love the encouragement to other farmers to tell their own stories and sort of seize the narrative to craft the message that is being shared, and especially just making sure that the correct information is shared. So thank you for that. We do have a few questions, so I think, suggest we answer them fairly briefly if
Yeah.
possible. And then, of course, this is recorded, and people can certainly reach out to you after the fact if they
Yes,
want to
please do.
discuss,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
So the first question is from Megan Weatherall at GFO. I'm wanting to start a social media page, specifically Instagram, for our farm. Any advice? I'm nervous about the negative comments. We have beef cattle and how to handle it.
Mm, that is a loaded question. So kind of, if you can get a recorded thing of my presentation, go back and just kind of remind you to be positive. Um, don't poke the bear. Maybe stay away from the heavy questions or heavy things that really bother you, because what bothers you probably doesn't bother everyone else, most people, right? So um, keep it light, keep it fun, talk about your passion, talk about how you love your animals, talk about why you love doing what you're doing, and talk about being consumer like everyone else. Talk about your family, talk about all those things. The farm is important to talk about, but you need to talk about your connection with the farm, and then people really realize that you're a good person. You really do care about what you do. Um, don't feel bad about blocking and deleting uh, activists and stuff. It gets harder when you get a larger following, but you don't need them hanging around. But if you have any, I can answer that actually more detailed if you want to reach out to me, and I'd be happy to help you because I've been there in the negative. But generally, if you try to soak yourself in positive stuff, then it'll stay positive. So
That's great. Thank
do
you.
it, do it. You can do it.
Just do it. Another one from our very own Robin Anderson. You've used social media to bring people into your everyday farm life. How do you integrate farm safety messages into those stories in a natural way without sounding preachy?
Exactly. So I have no problem to tell people that I make mistakes. I'm human. Farmers are in a rush, and I am very much an empath. I'm very much sometimes a bit of a soppy guy, and I will talk about how something I've done has affected me or affected someone else, or how I worry about my son going up in the silo, or as a father. I use those real human connections, and you don't want to preach, because they're brutal, eh? Like you see some young kid driving a big monster tractor, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I did that when I was young," and like let them do it, and I'm like, I don't know, man, that makes me nauseous thinking about it, because I know what can happen. Not always, often, maybe not to you. It's like someone who said, I've smoked all my life and never had cancer. Just because you've never had an accident on the farm doesn't mean it won't happen, right? It's going to happen to somebody. So,
Exactly.
so just be human, be yourself. You don't need to preach ever. Like I'd never preach. That turns people off. Just use your example. Say something happened to you on your own farm that may be small, and say this is what could have been worse. This is how it would have affected my wife, my life, my farm. I could have lost everything. So just keep it emotional, and keep it positive. Um, yeah, because farmers are a pretty stubborn bunch, and they don't always like to be preached at. So that's a good question.
Yeah, positive and authentic, right?
Yep.
And one from Rachel Telford, also GFO. In addition to protesters, we have also heard of people randomly showing up at farms because they feel like a farmer on social media has become their friend. Despite the fact they didn't have ill intent, that can still be scary. Do you have any concerns for your safety with being so open on social media? Do you think Ontario's trespass laws are strong enough or that you have enough other protections for your personal safety? This could be a session in itself, I think.
It could
But
be, and I'll try to answer really quickly. I've been a little lax the last little while, but I always used to be very careful not to share my farm name, which is actually in my email address, but it's or my name as Farmer Tim. So I've actually blocked Tim May. If anyone tags me as Tim May on there, then it won't show up, right? So or those words, certain words and stuff you can block, or pictures. Make sure your pictures aren't that easily to figure out where you are or your town, like where you're from. But if people want to find you, they're going to find you, right? So I've had people show up. My wife's not listening; she'd probably freak out if she heard. But people going like down the concession roads trying to find me and asking people where I am, and they show up and wandering around, and they're nice people. They're a little bit odd, but you don't necessarily want to do it. I have no trespassing sign on my farm because of DFO said, it suggested it, and it works. People I'm very welcoming. People come in and talk to me, um, but I think generally people are positive, and I think since COVID, especially, some of that's come down. I talked about that animal rights protest. They actually went to a farm in Elmira and broke into a Mennonite farm and stole one of his calves. And poor guy, the young family went out to the field. He was praying for them to go away, and they stayed there for a couple hours taking videos. And it happens, but I don't know. I'm not as worried as I used to be about it because I stay positive. So it could happen to any farmer anywhere, not just because of social media. So if you stay positive on social media, I think they're less likely to leave you, or more likely to leave you alone than if you're like poking the bear. And I know other farmers have to put video cameras up everywhere. And I will mention sometimes, I have video cameras or I have like these safety things going on the farm. Just kind of drop that every once in a while. So yeah, I could
I
keep
get it.
talking about that all day, but
Yeah, we'll invite you back for a session on
yeah.
that specifically. And then the last question of today, and then I'll do some very brief closing remarks and get everybody back to their day. The last question is, how would you handle artificial intelligence generated images that are used online to paint agriculture in a negative light? We've all seen those.
That annoys me actually. I was going to include some of those in my post, but lately I don't know what I've looked at. I haven't looked at anything bad, but it's all been like, beautiful women in scantily clad outfits with barefoot in the mud in a cow yard and people are like, believe that they're actual farmers, right? And it's usually farmers falling for it, older people generally too, but it annoys me. And in a way, it's actually drawing some positive to agriculture because they're like, oh, wow, these pretty people can be farmers too. Of course, we're all pretty people, but it is an issue. And I haven't seen there's always been stuff with like GMOs and people in the hazmat suits spraying crops with their walking through and stuff, and they've always been photoshopped and everything. But I think I'm hoping it's going to balance out. So there's always going to be a bit of negative, but we can also use it for positive. I try to keep it real, and it's getting harder and harder to detect. I'm pretty good at it, but it's like people fall for the silliest thing, right? So that's a challenging. We'll see. It's moving so fast. I can hardly comment on it because I don't know what's going to become of it. It's terrifying and exciting.
Well, hopefully, if people like you and others share enough positive messages, it can outweigh some of that garbage.
Exactly.
So thank you, Tim. We really appreciate you being with us today. Your openness, your vulnerability, and all the ways you're using kindness, advocacy, and your own voice to help promote agriculture and break the stigma of mental health. So
No
thanks
problem.
again for
It was
being
a
here.
lot, a lot I packed in there. And hindsight, I should have shortened it down a bit. But anyway, I
It's all
wanted.
good. All good information to
Awesome.
share. So
Well,
thank
thank
you
you
so
very much.
much.
Appreciate it.
Okay, I'll be so speedy in wrapping up, everybody, because I don't know where you are, but it's lunchtime here. So now I just like to wrap this week up with a few weeks words to reflect on just some of the highlights of the week. In keeping with CASA's tagline, Sharing Knowledge, Protecting People, this year's online program brought together speakers from Canada, the US, and Australia. The network of agricultural health and safety is such a huge and diverse one, and yet we share so many commonalities in our goals, our programs, and our approaches, and even our challenges. And there will always be more we can learn from one another. So many great programs, insights, ideas, and stories were shared this week on topics ranging from child safety and media engagement to injury reporting, mental health, resilience, and community-based safety programs, and so much more. So rather than reiterate the program, I thought I'd share an alliterative list of keywords that jumped out and resonated with me throughout the week, and I hope they leave a similarly resounding impression with you. It all started with a conversation around the importance of curiosity, care, and commitment, followed by coordination, collaboration, consistency, continuous improvement by working together, communication, connection and community, and of course, growing safety culture. Through a thoughtful, strategic, and supportive approach amongst this vast network we're all a part of, we can and we will continue to make a difference. We here at CASA will always welcome the opportunity to continue those conversations that help us all to do so. That said, I'd like to once again thank all of our speakers. We truly appreciate your time and attention preparing for the conference, and we value the stories, insights, and perspectives each of you shared with everyone present. Special thanks to Ron and Artisan IT for everything leading up to and during the conference to help things run so smoothly. Thank you so much to CASA staff. Megan, Robin, and Sheena, ladies, you really pulled it together. You truly outdid yourselves. I'd also like to thank our board, especially our MCs this week, our chair, Peter Seconda, and board members Trevor Wally and Cassandra Dredger. Thanks to each of you for taking on this additional role to add to our conference dynamic. And of course, one more thank you to our sponsor, John Deere Canada. We're very grateful for your sponsorship that enabled us to offer free registration, which I'm sure played a big factor in helping boost our registration numbers to over 160 attendees. With our key objectives to reach and connect and share knowledge, well, what an incredible boost. So thank you, John Deere Canada. Thanks as well to all of you who attended. We appreciate you making time to come out from across Canada, the US, Australia, New Zealand, and beyond to hear others' stories. We hope you'll take some of these key messages home with you and consider how you'll share your stories moving forward. When we share the recordings, we'll also send a survey we hope you'll complete to help us keep meeting your needs with events like this. If you're interested in supporting CASA, and we hope you are, please consider becoming a member of our organization. You can join via the link that may be in the chat or on our website under the About Us tab. We hope you'll save the date for our 2026 conference, where we'll be joining forces with ISASH, the International Society for Agricultural Safety and Health, and the Canadian Centre for Rural and Agricultural Health for the 8th Annual International Symposium of Safety and Health in Agricultural and Rural Populations, otherwise known as SHARP. This in-person conference will take place June 15th to 18th, 2026 in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. We've placed the link in the chat for more information. And with that, I'll say thanks again for joining us this week. We're so glad you all came out for the 2025 CASA conference, and we encourage you to reflect on the presentations, ideas, and stories shared, and connect with us and with one another to continue the conversations that will help grow safety mindset and safety culture in our agricultural and rural communities. Stay healthy, happy, and safe, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye for now.